The USS Horizon glided through the endless darkness like a silver arrow crossing an ocean of stars. Unlike the towering battleships that patrolled the frontier, its sleek hull carried no planet-cracking weapons or heavy armor. It had been built for diplomacy rather than destruction. A vessel where negotiations replaced battles, and words carried more weight than missiles. Every corridor, every observation lounge, and every carefully crafted chamber reflected humanity's hope that peace could accomplish what war never could. Yet on this journey, the Horizon carried a passenger whose presence made the unarmed ship more valuable than an entire battle fleet. Princess Velasori stood alone before the panoramic viewport of her private quarters, watching rivers of starlight stream past as the ship crossed the void between civilizations. Their pale glow reflected across her elegant features, but her thoughts were far from the beauty beyond the glass. Somewhere ahead lay a future that would reshape the relationship between humanity and her people forever. Behind her, the quiet hum of the diplomatic vessel was the only sound in the room, a reminder that history often traveled not aboard the largest warships, but aboard the smallest ships carrying the greatest hopes. Her silver skin catching the light of distant stars. She was tall and graceful, with eyes the color of pale moonlight, and hair that flowed like liquid mercury down her back. She was beautiful by any species standards, and she knew it. She was also deeply unhappy. "A human ship," she said to her attendant, her voice dripping with displeasure. "My father sends me to the most important peace summit in a century, and he puts me on a human ship." Her attendant, an older airy woman named Senna, bowed her head. "The Emperor believes it sends a message of unity. Your Highness, showing trust in our newer allies." "Trust?" Vela laughed. But there was no warmth in it. Humans have been in space for barely 200 years. They are children playing with toys they do not understand, and I am supposed to trust my life to them. She turned away from the window and walked toward her door. "I need air. This room smells like human machinery." The corridors of the Horizon were clean and functional, nothing like the golden halls of her father's palace. Vela walked with her head high, her two ceremonial guards following 3 steps behind. Crew members stepped aside as she passed, pressing themselves against walls and lowering their eyes. As they should, she thought. She rounded a corner and nearly walked into a young human man carrying a stack of data pads. He stumbled backward, dropping several of them, and immediately fell to his knees to gather them up. "Forgive me, Your Highness," he said quickly, not meeting her eyes. "I did not see you coming." Vela looked down at him with mild disgust. He was average in every way. Average height, average build, brown hair cut short, wearing the simple gray uniform of a communications cadet. There was nothing remarkable about him at all. He was the kind of person you looked at and immediately forgot. "You should watch where you walk," she said coldly. "Yes, Your Highness." "It will not happen again." She stepped around him without another word and continued down the corridor. Behind her, she heard him gathering his data pads, and then the soft sound of his footsteps moving in the opposite direction. "Clumsy creatures," she muttered. The young man was named Daniel Cole, though everyone on the ship called him Danny. He was 24 years old, and according to his official records, he had graduated in the middle of his class at the academy with unremarkable scores in every subject. He had been assigned to the Horizon 6 months ago as a junior communications officer, and in that time, he had done nothing to stand out. He ate alone, he spoke rarely, he completed his duties with quiet efficiency, and then disappeared into his small quarters. Most of the crew had stopped noticing him entirely. This was exactly what he wanted. Danny delivered his data pads to the communications center, and then made his way to the mess hall. He collected a simple meal protein block, vegetables, water, and sat at a corner table where he could see both entrances. He ate slowly, his eyes moving across the room in a pattern that looked random, but was not. 3 Alori delegates sat at a far table, talking loudly in their own language. Danny understood every word. They were complaining about the food, the accommodations, and the smell of humans. One of them made a joke about human intelligence, comparing it to that of trained animals. They all laughed. Danny's face showed nothing. He took another bite of his protein block. Commander Lisa Grant entered the mess hall a few minutes later. She was a tall woman in her 40s, with gray streaking her dark hair, and a face that had seen too many battles to smile easily. She collected her own meal and walked through the room, nodding to crew members as she passed. When she reached Danny's table, she paused for just a moment. Their eyes met. She gave a small nod, so small that anyone watching would think it was just a polite acknowledgement of a junior officer. Danny returned the nod. The message was clear. The asset is secure. Stay ready. Commander Grant moved on, sitting with her senior officers on the other side of the room. Danny finished his meal and left. Later that night, Danny stood alone in a maintenance corridor on Deck 7. It was a forgotten part of the ship, rarely visited by anyone except repair crews. He had found it during his first week aboard and had claimed it as his own. He removed his gray cadet uniform and folded it neatly. Beneath it, he wore a simple black undershirt. His body was lean but hard, covered in scars that no communications cadet should have. There was a knife wound on his left side, a burn mark on his right shoulder, and 3 small circles on his chest where bullets had once entered. He began to move, not exercise, something else. Something that looked like a dance, but was not. His hands flowed through the air, striking invisible targets. His feet shifted in patterns designed for combat in tight spaces. Every movement was precise, economical, deadly. This was what he truly was. Not a cadet, not a communications officer. He was a Reaper, one of humanity's most elite and secret warriors. There were only 47 of them in existence, and each one was worth an entire battalion. He had been placed on this ship for one reason, to protect Princess Vales. And she did not know it. Her father did not know it. Only 3 people on this ship knew the truth. Commander Grant, the ship's doctor, and Danny himself. The Allori princess thought she was being guarded by ceremonial soldiers with pretty swords. She thought humans were weak and primitive. She had looked at Danny and seen nothing worth noticing. That was fine. Danny did not need to be noticed. He only needed to be ready. He finished his training and stood still in the darkness, controlling his breathing. The ship hummed around him, carrying them all toward the peace summit. Everything was quiet. Everything was normal. Then the lights flickered. Dai's eyes snapped to the ceiling. The flicker lasted less than a second, and then everything was normal again. Most people would not have noticed it at all, but Danny noticed everything. He pulled up his communicator and checked the ship systems. Everything read normal. No alerts, no warnings. He frowned and checked the external sensors instead. There at the very edge of scanner range, a ghost signature. Something that was there and then was not. It appeared for less than half a second before vanishing into the void. It could be nothing. A sensor glitch, space debris, a random anomaly. But Dee's instincts told him otherwise. Something was out there, something was watching them, and it was not friendly. His hand moved to his hip, where no weapon was visible beneath his cadet uniform. But something was there. A blade so thin, it was nearly invisible. Made from a material that no scanner could detect. He could feel its weight against his skin. Comforting and familiar. Not yet, he whispered to himself. But soon he pulled his uniform back on and walked out of the maintenance corridor, becoming once again the quiet cadet that nobody noticed. But his eyes were sharper now, his senses alert. The hunt was beginning. He could feel it, and whatever was coming, he would be ready. The attack came 3 days later, in the dead of the ship's artificial night. Danny was asleep in his small quarters when the first explosion tore through the Horizon's engine room. The entire ship shuddered, throwing him from his bed before his body hit the floor. He was already awake, already moving, already reaching for the blade hidden beneath his mattress. Red emergency lights flooded the corridor outside. Alarms screamed. Voices shouted in confusion and fear. Danny pulled on his boots and opened his door. Crew members ran past him in both directions, some toward their battle stations, others simply running in panic. He grabbed a young 9 sign by the arm. "What happened?" he asked, his voice calm. "3 ships," the unsigned gasped. "They came out of nowhere. They've boarded us on multiple decks." Danny released him, and the ensign ran on. 3 ships, multiple boarding parties. This was not a random pirate attack. This was a coordinated assault by professionals. He activated his hidden earpiece and spoke quietly. "Reaper 7, to Horizon Actual." Commander Grant's voice came back immediately, tight with stress. 7. We're under attack. Apex Hunters. They've hit engineering, and they're pushing toward the VIP deck. Apex Hunters. Danny's jaw tightened. He knew that name. Everyone in the galaxy knew that name. They were the most feared hunters in 12-star systems mercenaries. who captured and killed for sport and profit. They had never failed to claim a target, and they were here for the princess. "What's the status of the asset?" Danny asked, being moved to the panic room on deck 4. "Her guards are with her, but 7. Grant's voice cracked with static as another explosion rocked the ship. "They're cutting through us like paper. We need you." "On my way." Danny moved through the ship with purpose, avoiding the main corridors where fighting was heaviest. He climbed through maintenance shafts and crawled through ventilation ducts, moving toward deck 4 by routes that only he had memorized. The sounds of battle echoed around him. Gunfire, screams, the heavy thud of bodies falling. The Horizon security teams were fighting hard, but they were outmatched. The Apex hunters were not ordinary enemies. They were killers, who had spent centuries perfecting their craft. Danny dropped from a ventilation shaft into a corridor on deck 6. He was 2 decks below the princess, and he needed to move fast. He started running. He made it 30 meters before the wall beside him exploded inward. A massive figure burst through the broken metal of Rexian, one of the most dangerous species in the galaxy. It stood nearly 3 meters tall, with 4 powerful arms and blades extending from each wrist. Its skin was thick and gray like armor plating. Its eyes burned with the joy of the hunt. It saw Danny and laughed. The sound was deep and cruel. "A human," it said, its voice like grinding stone. "A small one, no weapons, no armor." It stepped closer, blades gleaming in the red emergency lights. "This will be quick." Danny did not run. He did not beg. He simply stood there watching the alien approach. His body relaxed, and still the Vrexian swung its first blade. A killing strike aimed at Danny's throat. Danny moved. He slipped beneath the blade like water flowing around a stone. His hand came up and suddenly, there was a knife in it, thin as a needle, black as shadow. It found the gap between the Vexian's armor plates and sank deep into the creature's neck. The Vrexian made a choking sound. Its other arms swung wildly, blades cutting the air where Danny had been a moment before, but Danny was already behind it, already pulling his blade free, already striking again. 3 more cuts, each one precise, each one fatal. The Vrexian fell. It was dead before it hit the ground. Danny stood over the body, his breathing steady. The entire fight had lasted 4 seconds. He cleaned his blade on the alien's clothing and took its weapons, a plasma pistol and 2 curved knives. Then he activated his earpiece again. "Reaper 7 to Horizon actual asset is compromised." "I'm going loud." Commander Grant's voice came back harder now. "Acknowledged. 7. Do what you do." Danny moved. He was no longer the quiet cadet who delivered reports and ate alone in the mess hall. He was something else now. Something that moved through the ship like death itself. Silent and unstoppable. He found 3 more hunters on deck 5. They were Kravik smaller than the Vrexian, but fast and vicious with claws that could tear through steel. They were standing over the bodies of 2 human security officers, laughing about the easy kills. They stopped laughing when Danny appeared. The first one died before it could raise its weapon. The second managed to fire a single shot that missed Danny's head by centimeters. The third tried to run. It made it 2 steps. Danny did not waste ammunition. He did not waste movement. Every action served a purpose. Every strike was final. He climbed to deck 4, leaving bodies behind him. The corridor outside the panic room was a war zone. Hunters fighting against the princess's ceremonial guards. The Allori guards were brave, Danny noted. They fought hard with their golden swords, using techniques that had been passed down for thousands of years. But technique meant nothing against superior firepower. Danny watched from the shadows as the last guard fell, a plasma bolt burning through his chest. The hunter who killed him, a scarred alien with 1 eye and a mechanical arm, stepped over the body and approached the panic room door. "Cut it open," the hunter ordered. "The princess is inside." 2 other hunters moved forward with cutting tools. Sparks flew as they began to slice through the reinforced metal. Danny counted. 6 hunters total. All armed. All professional. The scarred one was clearly their leader, Keth Vero. If Danny's intelligence was correct, a legendary killer with over 200 confirmed captures. The odds were not good. Danny smiled. He had faced worse. He raised his stolen plasma pistol and fired once. The shot was perfect, hitting the power pack of one hunter's weapon. The resulting explosion killed that hunter instantly and wounded 2 others. Before they could react, Danny was among them. It was not a fight. It was a slaughter. He moved between them like a ghost, his blades finding throats and hearts, and the soft spaces between armor. They tried to shoot him, but he was never where they aimed. They tried to grab him, but he flowed through their hands like smoke. Keith Varro backed away, his one eye wide with something that might have been fear. "What are you?" he demanded. Danny did not answer. He was too busy killing the hunter's remaining soldiers. When it was done, when 5 bodies lay on the ground, and only Catharo remained, Danny finally spoke. "Run," he said quietly. "Tell your masters what happened here. Tell them what humans can do." Keith Varro stared at him for a long moment. Then he turned and fled, disappearing into the smoke-filled corridors. Danny let him go. The message needed to spread. He turned to the panic room door, which was still half cut, and knocked gently. "Your Highness," he called. "It's safe to come out now." There was a long silence. Then the door slid open, and Princess Velasori then stepped out. Her silver skin was pale with fear. Her moonlight eyes were wide as they moved from Danny's face to the bodies surrounding him. "You," she whispered. "The cadet. Yes. Your Highness. You did this?" Danny looked at the fallen hunters. "Yes." The princess stared at him, as if seeing him for the first time, and in a way she was. She was seeing the truth that lay beneath the quiet surface, the predator that humanity had hidden among them. "Who are you?" she asked. Danny wiped his blade clean and sheathed it. "Someone who will keep you alive," he said. "Now, please stay close. This is not over yet." Princess Vela had seen death before. She had attended executions in her father's court. She had watched warriors duel for honor in the ancient arenas of her homeworld. She had thought she understood violence. She was wrong. The human walking in front of her was something different, something her people had no word for. He moved through the burning corridors of the horizon like a shadow with knives, and everywhere he went, death followed. "Stay behind me," Danny said for the 3rd time. "And when I tell you to run, you run. Do not look back. I am not some helpless child," Vela snapped, though her voice shook. "I have been trained in. Your training means nothing here, Your Highness." Danny stopped at a corner, listened for a moment, then continued forward. "The apex hunters have killed warriors far more experienced than you. They have killed species that were conquering galaxies while your people were still learning to make fire. If they catch you, they will not kill you quickly. Do you understand?" Vela said nothing. She understood. They moved through Deck 4 in silence, stepping over bodies, some human, some alien, some barely recognizable. The ship groaned around them like a wounded animal. Emergency lights flickered. Somewhere in the distance, gunfire continued. "Where are we going?" Vela finally asked. "The secondary bridge. Commander Grant is holding it with what's left of the security team. From there, we can coordinate a counterattack." "A counterattack." Vela almost laughed. "With what? Half your crew is dead. Your ship is crippled. The hunters have made a mistake," Danny said quietly. "They thought this would be easy. They were wrong." Before Vela could respond, a voice echoed through the corridor ahead. It was deep and harsh, amplified by speakers throughout the deck. "Princess Velasori." Then the voice belonged to Keth Varro. "I know you can hear me. I know you are hiding somewhere on this ship with that human pet of yours, but you cannot hide forever." Danny's hand went up, signaling Vela to stop. They pressed against the wall, listening. "I have 40 warriors on this vessel," Keth Varro continued. "Your human protectors are dying one by one. Soon there will be no one left. And then I will find you. I will drag you before my masters, and you will spend the rest of your long life wishing you had died here." The broadcast ended. Silence fell. Vela found that she was shaking. She hated herself for it, but she could not stop. The fear was too strong. Fear of the hunters, fear of death, fear of what lay ahead. Then she looked at Danny, and she realized he was not shaking at all. His face was calm. His breathing was steady. His eyes were clear and cold like ice on a winter lake. He was not afraid. He was not even angry. He was simply thinking, calculating, planning. 40 warriors, he said quietly. "I've killed 11 so far. Commander Grant's team has probably taken out another 5 or 6. That leaves about 25, he nodded to himself. Good odds. Good odds." Vela stared at him. "Are you insane? Even the greatest Aori warrior could not face 25 apex hunters alone." Danny turned to look at her. For the first time, she saw something in his eyes that made her blood run cold. Not cruelty, not madness. but something far more terrifying: certainty. "I am not an HRE warrior," he said. "I am a reaper." The word meant nothing to her, but the way he said it, the weight of it, the gravity told her it should. "What is a reaper?" she asked. Danny was silent for a moment. Then he reached up and pulled at the collar of his cadet uniform, tearing it open to reveal what lay beneath. It was not skin. It was armor, matte black form-fitting, covering his chest like a second skin, and over his heart, etched in silver lines, was a small skull. "My people call us many things," Danny said. "Shadows, ghosts, reapers. We are what humanity creates. When we need to win a war that cannot be won, there are 47 of us in existence. Each one is trained from childhood in every form of combat known to our species. Each one is worth an entire battalion." He pulled his uniform closed again, hiding the armor. "Oh, so I was placed on this ship to protect you, Your Highness. Not because your father asked, not because my commanders ordered it, but because you are important to the peace, and peace is worth protecting." Vela's mouth was dry. "Why did no one tell me?" "Because the secret protects the mission. If you had known, you might have treated me differently. Others might have noticed. The hunters might have learned. It was safer for everyone if I remained invisible." A ghost of a smile crossed his face. "Besides, you seemed happier thinking humans were clumsy and primitive. I did not want to disappoint you." Despite everything, the fear, the death, the chaos, Vela found herself almost laughing. This human, this reaper, had watched her mock his species for days. He had endured her insults without complaint, playing the role of the overlooked cadet while secretly preparing to protect her life. "I owe you an apology," she said quietly. "You owe me nothing now. Please stay close. We need to move." They continued through the ship. Twice they encountered small groups of hunters. The first group had 3 members. They died in less than 10 seconds. The second group had 5. They lasted slightly longer, nearly half a minute, but the result was the same. Vela watched it all. She watched Danny move through enemies like wind through leaves, his blades finding every weakness, his body dodging every attack. It was beautiful and terrible at the same time, like watching a storm destroy a forest. And she began to understand something. Her people, the Allori, had looked at humans and seen primitives, short-lived creatures from a harsh planet, barely worthy of notice. They had thought humans were weak because they did not have natural weapons, did not have armored skin, did not have psychic powers or enhanced senses. But they had missed the truth. Humans were not weak, despite their limitations. They were strong because of them. Every generation they faced death and found ways to survive. Every century they faced extinction and found ways to overcome. They had clawed their way to the stars, not through gifts, but through sheer relentless will. And when they needed weapons, they created the Reapers. They reached the secondary bridge 10 minutes later. Commander Grant was there along with 8 surviving security officers and a handful of crew members. They had barricaded the entrances and were preparing for a final stand. Grant's eyes widened when she saw Danny. "7. You made it. I brought the package," Danny said, gesturing to Vela. "I am not a package," Vela protested. Nobody paid attention. Grant was already pulling up tactical displays, showing the positions of the remaining hunters throughout the ship. "They're regrouping on deck 2. Keith Varro is with them. It looks like they're planning one final push." Danny studied the display. "How long until help arrives?" 4 hours. Maybe 5. "We cannot wait that long. They will breach these doors in 1. Danny pointed at the display. "But if we hit them first here in the main corridor, we can catch them in a crossfire." Grant shook her head. "We don't have the numbers for an assault. You have me." Dai's voice was calm. "Give me 2 volunteers and a distraction. I will do the rest." The bridge went silent. Everyone was looking at Danny now, the quiet cadet who had suddenly become something else entirely. "You're one man," Grant said softly. "There are at least 20 of them." Danny smiled. It was not a pleasant smile. "I know it's almost unfair." He paused. "For them," Vela stepped forward. "I will go with him." Every head in the room turned to stare at her. "Your Highness," Grant began with respect. "You are the person we are trying to protect, and I am tired of being protected." Vela lifted her chin, her silver eyes flashing. "This human has risked his life for me. The least I can do is stand beside him." She looked at Danny. "Give me a weapon. Show me what to do. I will not hide while others die for me." Danny studied her for a long moment. Then slowly, he nodded. Very well, Your Highness. But you follow my orders. No arguments, no hesitation. Agreed. Danny reached down and drew a small pistol from his boot. He handed it to her. Grip first. Point it at the enemy. Pull the trigger. Try not to die. Vela took the weapon. It was heavier than she expected, but it felt right in her hand. I think I can manage that, she said. Danny almost smiled. Then let us go hunting. The plan was simple. Too simple, Vela thought. But Danny seemed confident, and she was beginning to trust his confidence. They gathered in the secondary bridge. Danny, Vela, 2 security officers named Kyle Porter and Megan Torres, and 3 Alori delegates who had survived the initial assault. The delegates looked at Danny with a mixture of fear and confusion. One of them, an older male named Sauron, kept shaking his head in disbelief. This is madness, Sauron whispered. 1 human cannot defeat 20 apex hunters. It is impossible. Danny was checking his weapons, the plasma pistol, his twin blades, and several small devices that Vela did not recognize. He did not look up. With respect, sir, you do not know what is possible. I know the hunters. I have studied them. They have conquered species far more powerful than yours. They have. They have never faced a reaper. Danny finally raised his eyes and Saren fell silent. You think humans are weak because we are small and short-lived. You think we are primitive because we come from a single harsh world. But you are wrong. Our world did not make us weak. It made us survivors. Every creature on Earth learned one lesson: adapt or die. And we adapted better than anything else. He slipped a blade into his boot and stood. The apex hunters are used to prey that runs, prey that hides, prey that begs for mercy. His voice was quiet, but it filled the room. I am not prey. I am what hunts the hunters. And tonight, they will learn why the room was silent. Even Sauron had nothing to say. Commander Grant stepped forward. The distraction is ready. We've rigged the main corridor with light grenades and sound emitters. It will blind and deafen them for about 5 seconds. 5 seconds is enough. Danny looked at Kyle and Megan. You 2 stay with the princess. If anything gets past me, you hold the line. Kyle nodded. He was young, barely out of the academy, but his hands were steady. We won't let you down. Danny turned to Vela. Your Highness, are you ready? Vela gripped her pistol. Her heart was pounding, but she forced her voice to stay calm. Ready? Then let us end this. They moved through the ship like shadows. Danny led the way, with Vela close behind, and Kyle and Megan bringing up the rear. The Aerie delegates stayed on the bridge. They were diplomats, not fighters, and they knew it. The corridors were darker now. Someone had killed the main lighting, leaving only the red emergency glow. It cast strange shadows on the walls, making every corner seem dangerous. Danny stopped at an intersection and raised his hand. Everyone froze. 4 of them, he whispered, around the next corner. Rear guard. How do you know? Vela asked. I can hear their breathing. She stared at him. Human hearing was supposed to be inferior to most species, but then again, nothing about this human was what she had expected. Danny drew one of his blades. Wait here. I will be back in 1 minute. He moved around the corner without a sound. Vela waited. The seconds stretched like hours. She heard nothing. No gunfire, no screaming, no sounds of combat, just silence. Then Danny reappeared, wiping his blade clean. Clear. Move. They continued forward. Twice more. Danny disappeared around corners. Twice more. He returned alone. Vela stopped asking questions. They reached the main corridor on deck. 15 minutes later. It was a long, straight passage, the central artery of the ship, and at the far end, gathered in a defensive formation, were the remaining apex hunters. There were 17 of them. Keith Varro stood in the center, his scarred face twisted with anger. He was shouting orders, organizing his troops for the final assault on the secondary bridge. Danny studied them from the shadows. Kyle, Megan, take the princess to that alcove. He pointed to a recessed doorway about 20 meters back. Stay there until I signal you. What about you? Megan asked. I am going to introduce myself. Before anyone could argue, Danny stepped out into the corridor. He walked forward calmly, making no effort to hide. The emergency lights cast his shadow long and dark before him. The hunters saw him immediately. Weapons came up. Keith Varro's one eye narrowed. The human, he growled. The one who has been killing my soldiers. Danny stopped 10 meters from the hunter formation. He was utterly alone, facing 17 armed killers with nothing but 2 blades and a stolen pistol. Keith Varro, he said. His voice was calm, conversational. I gave you a chance to run. You should have taken it. Keith Varro laughed. It was an ugly sound. Run from a single human? I think not. He gestured to his troops. Kill him. Make it slow. The hunters raised their weapons. Danny smiled, and the world exploded in light and sound. The grenades Commander Grant had planted erupted all at once. Blinding white light flooded the corridor. A sound like 1,000 thunderclaps shattered the air. The hunters screamed, covering their eyes and ears, stumbling backward in confusion. Danny moved. He was among them before they could recover, his blades flashing in the dying light. The first hunter fell with a knife in its throat. The second lost its weapon hand before it could fire. The third tried to run and died with a blade in its back. Danny did not stop. He flowed through them like water through rocks, always moving, never still. He used their bodies as shields, their own weapons against them. He struck at joints and throats and the soft places between armor plates. The hunters tried to fight back. Some of them were veterans of 100 battles. Some of them had killed warriors far larger and stronger than this small human. But none of them had ever faced anything like Danny. He was not stronger than them. He was not faster than them. But he was more efficient. Every movement served a purpose. Every strike was lethal. He wasted nothing. No energy, no motion, no time from the alcove. Vela watched in horrified fascination. She had thought the earlier fights were impressive. This was something else entirely. This was art. Terrible, bloody art. A hunter broke free from the melee and ran toward the alcove, either fleeing or seeking easier prey. It was massive. A thoracic, nearly 3 meters of muscle and bone and rage. Vela raised her pistol. Her hands were shaking. The hunter was 10 meters away. 8-5. She fired. The shot hit the hunter in the shoulder, spinning it around, but not stopping it. It roared and kept coming. She fired again. This time, the shot went wide. The hunter was 3 meters away now, close enough that she could see the murder in its eyes. Then Kyle Porter stepped in front of her. He was half the hunter's size, armed with nothing but a standard security rifle, but he did not hesitate. He fired 3 shots into the hunter's face at point-blank range, and the creature finally fell. Nice shot, Your Highness, Kyle said. His voice was shaking, but he was smiling. I missed, Vela said. You hit it, that's what matters. He turned back to the corridor. She looked. The corridor was littered with bodies. 15 hunters lay dead or dying. Danny was facing the last 2, Kath Varro, and one of his lieutenants. The lieutenant attacked first. It was fast, skilled, desperate. It lasted almost 8 seconds before Danny's blade found its heart. Then only Kath Varro remained. The scarred hunter looked around at his fallen soldiers, the best killers in 12 star systems, reduced to corpses by a single human. His face was pale. His one eye was wide with something that might have been fear or might have been awe. What are you? He whispered. Danny walked toward him, blades dripping red. I told you I am a reaper. Keith Varro raised his weapon. His hand was shaking. Danny moved. The weapon flew from Kath Varro's grip. A moment later, the hunter was on his knees, Danny's blade at his throat. I am going to let you live, Danny said quietly again. Do you know why? None. Keith Varro said nothing. Because I want you to carry a message. I want you to go back to your masters and tell them what happened here. Tell them about the humans. Tell them about the reapers. Tell them that we are coming. He leaned close, his voice dropping to a whisper. Tell them to be afraid. Then he stepped back and sheathed his blade. Run now before I change my mind. Kath Varro ran. He scrambled to his feet and fled down the corridor, disappearing into the darkness. He did not look back. Danny watched him go. Then he turned to look at Vela, who was still standing in the alcove with her pistol raised. Your Highness, he said calmly, are you uninjured? Yes, I am fine. Good. He gestured to the corridor. It is safe now. The remaining hunters will retreat to their ships. They have lost their leader and most of their force. They will not risk another assault. Vela stepped out of the alcove, on legs that felt like water. She looked at the bodies. 17 of the most dangerous killers in the galaxy. defeated by one man. This is not possible, she heard herself say. Danny walked toward her, and for the first time she noticed that he was wounded. There was blood on his arm, more on his side. He was limping slightly, but he was still standing, still calm, still looking at her with those cold, clear eyes. Humans do many impossible things. Your Highness, he said. We have had a lot of practice. The rescue fleet arrived 6 hours later. 3 Iori warships and 2 human destroyers. Their weapons charged and ready for battle. But there was no battle to fight. The apex hunters were gone, fled into the darkness of space with their wounded pride and their terrible new knowledge. The USS Horizon limped toward the nearest starbase, her engines barely functional, her hull scarred with plasma burns and boarding cuts. Of her original crew of 230, 87 had died. It was a heavy price, but it could have been much worse. Princess Vila stood on the observation deck, watching the rescue ships form a protective formation around the wounded vessel. She had not slept since the attack. She was not sure she could sleep. Not yet. Every time she closed her eyes, she saw the corridor full of bodies and the human who had made them. The door behind her opened. She did not need to turn around to know who it was. Your Highness. Danny's voice was quiet. Respectful Commander Grant asked me to inform you that we will reach Starbase Chiros in approximately 4 hours. The peace summit has been delayed but not cancelled. Your father's representatives are already waiting. Vela turned. Danny was wearing a clean uniform now, not the gray cadet outfit, but the black and silver of the Horizon's senior staff. His wounds had been treated, though she could still see the bandages beneath his collar. He looked tired. She realized more tired than she had ever seen him. You should be resting, she said. I will rest when the mission is complete. The mission is complete. The hunters are gone. I am safe. Danny shook his head slightly. The mission is not complete until you are delivered safely to the summit and the peace agreement is signed. Until then, I remain on duty. Vela studied him. This strange human who had saved her life, who had killed dozens of the galaxy's most feared warriors, who had shown her that everything she believed about his species was wrong. He was standing at attention, waiting for her response, as if he was still just a servant. Come here, she said. Danny hesitated, then walked forward until he stood beside her at the observation window. They looked out at the stars together in silence. My people have been traveling among these stars for 10,000 years, Vela said finally. We have met hundreds of species. We have seen empires rise and fall. We thought we understood the galaxy. She paused. We did not understand anything. Your Highness, I looked at you and saw a primitive, a clumsy, unremarkable creature from a death world at the edge of nowhere. I thought humans were barely worth noticing. She turned to face him. I was a fool. Danny met her eyes. You were not a fool, Your Highness. You simply did not have all the information. Most species underestimate humans. We have learned to use that. The Reapers. The Reapers are one response. There are others. He looked back out at the stars. My people have a saying, weakness is not the absence of strength, it is the failure to adapt. We have never been the strongest species or the fastest, or the most advanced, but we have always adapted. We have always survived, and when we need to, we have always found ways to win. Vela was silent for a moment. Then she asked the question that had been burning in her mind since the battle. How many of you are there? Reapers? I mean 47. 47 in all of humanity. Yes, that seems few. Danny smiled slightly. It was the most human expression she had seen from him. 47 is enough. We are not an army. We are a scalpel. When something needs to be cut away, we cut it away quietly, efficiently, without leaving traces. He paused. The apex hunters were a threat to the peace. They are no longer a threat because of you. Because of the Horizon's crew, they fought bravely. Many died protecting you. I was simply the blade they used. Vela shook her head. You are too humble. I am honest. Humility is for people who have not seen what I have seen. He turned to face her fully. Your Highness, what happened on this ship will not stay secret. K. Vero will tell others. The word will spread. By the time you reach the summit, every species in the quadrant will know what a single human did to the apex hunters. Is that a problem? It is a change. Some will be afraid. Some will be angry. Some will refuse to believe it. But all of them will have to reconsider what they think they know about humanity. He paused. That could be dangerous, or it could be useful. It depends on how it is handled. Vela understood. The peace summit was not just about ending a trade war. It was about establishing humanity's place in the galactic community. And now that place had shifted dramatically. "My father will want to meet you," she said. "I would prefer to remain anonymous." "I know, but you have earned recognition. What you did, what I did was my duty. Nothing more." Dai's voice was firm. "I do not want recognition. I do not want fame. I want to return to my ship and wait for my next assignment. That is what Reapers do." Vela studied his face. He meant it, she realized. This man had single-handedly changed the balance of power in the quadrant, and all he wanted was to disappear again, to become invisible, to wait in the shadows for the next time he was needed. "You are a remarkable person, Daniel Cole," she said quietly. Something flickered in his eyes. Surprise, perhaps, or something warmer. Then it was gone, hidden behind the calm mask he always wore. "I am just a human, Your Highness. That is all I have ever been." 4 hours later, the Horizon docked at Starbase Chiros. The station was enormous, a spinning wheel of metal and light, home to millions of beings from dozens of species. Diplomatic vessels filled the docking bays. Flags and banners announced the peace summit in 100 languages. And at the main docking port, a crowd had gathered. Representatives from every major species in the quadrant stood waiting. Aloyori diplomats in golden robes, Thorak warriors in ceremonial armor, Kravik merchants, Vorak commanders, and dozens of others. They had come to see the damaged human vessel. They had come to see the princess who had survived. And they had come to see the human who had defeated the Apex hunters. Princess Vela walked down the boarding ramp with her head high. Her remaining guards flanked her, their golden swords gleaming. Behind them came Commander Grant and the surviving senior officers, and at Vela's side, wearing the simple gray uniform of a communications cadet, walked Danny. The crowd parted as they approached. Vela could feel the weight of 1,000 eyes, could hear the whispers in 100 languages. Everyone was staring. Everyone was trying to see. A delegation of Vorthok warriors stood at the front of the crowd. They were massive creatures, the largest sentient species in the quadrant, bred for war and conquest. They had called themselves the apex predators of the galaxy for centuries. They had looked down on other species, especially humans, as lesser beings. Now they watched Danny walk past with expressions Vela had never seen on Vorak faces before. Not anger, not contempt, something else. Respect. The largest Vorak, a grizzled veteran with scars covering half his face, stepped forward. For a moment, Vela thought he might challenge Danny, might try to test this human who had embarrassed the Apex hunters. Instead, the Vorak raised his fist to his chest in a warrior's salute. And then he stepped aside. One by one, the other Vorthak did the same. They moved back, creating a path through the crowd, making way, not for the princess, for Danny. Vela watched in astonishment. The most prideful species in the galaxy was showing respect to a single human, not because they had been ordered to, not because diplomacy required it, but because they recognized something in him, something they valued above all else. Strength. True strength. The kind that could not be faked or bought or inherited. Danny walked through the crowd without slowing, without acknowledging the salutes. His face was calm, expressionless, unreadable. He was nobody. He was a cadet. He was a ghost that had briefly become visible and would soon disappear again. But everyone was watching him, and everyone would remember. Later, after the formal greetings and the preliminary meetings, Vela found a quiet moment on an observation deck, overlooking the summit chamber. Danny stood nearby, as he always did, watching everything. "They made way for you," Vela said. "They made way for what I represent." "And what is that?" Danny was quiet for a moment. Then he turned to look at her, and for just an instant, she saw something behind the mask. Not the cold killer, not the perfect soldier, but something more human. "Hope," he said, "and warning. They see a species that refused to be prey, that clawed its way out of the darkness and kept climbing, that turned weakness into strength and fear into fury." He paused. "They see what humanity can become when we are pushed, and they wonder what we will do next." Vela thought about that. She thought about the galaxy vast and ancient, and full of powers that had risen and fallen for millions of years. She thought about humanity young and fragile and impossibly determined. And she thought about the Reapers waiting in the shadows, ready to strike at anything that threatened their people. I am glad we are allies, she said finally. Danny almost smiled. So am I, Your Highness. Somewhere far away, in the dark spaces between stars. Cavaro sat in his damaged ship and stared at nothing. His crew was gone. His reputation was destroyed. His entire understanding of the galaxy had been shattered by a single human in a cadet's uniform. He could still see those eyes, cold, clear, certain. He could still hear that voice. Tell them to be afraid. Keith Varro shivered. For the first time in his long, violent life, he understood what it felt like to be prey. And somewhere in the universe, humanity continued its quiet climb among the stars, small and young, and desperately mortal, but also stubborn, also creative, also capable of producing monsters when monsters were needed. The galaxy was beginning to understand what that meant, and the apex hunters, who had never feared anything in their existence, had learned to fear. At last, they made way for the humans. Now, everyone did.